All right. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. So, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's very special program, an evening to support and defend Mosab Abu Toha. My name is Ray Maglada. I am spokesperson for Revolution Books here in Harlem, a bookstore that is a beacon for a new world. Tonight, we, the readers, you, the audience, are coming together to celebrate the work of the beloved Palestinian poet, journalist, teacher, scholar, Mosab Abu Toha. Mosab won the 2025 Pulitzer Prize for journalism for his writings in The New Yorker. His work tells unflinchingly of the horror of the U.S.-Israeli genocide in Gaza. And yet, he refuses to forsake beauty. His work, as I said, tells of that horror. Mosab cannot tonight be with us, and the reason is that he has been threatened and targeted by the reactionary, right-wing, pro-Israeli, thug, vigilante organization Beitar, which has close ties with the Trump fascist regime. And Mosab fears for his safety, the safety of his family, his ability to do his work. So he has had to cancel his book tour with Forest of Noise, which people might have seen in the front of the room. And indeed, the situation that Mosab faces is a concentration of the larger situation in society. We are facing the most dangerous moment of our lifetimes. A fascist regime, the Trump fascist regime, is in power. And we have to stop it before it's too late. This regime is ferociously moving to criminalize dissent, to shut down academic institutions and critical thinking. It is rounding up, demonizing, and deporting immigrants. It is threatening humanity and the very planet we live on. As we speak, the escalating genocide in Gaza is unfolding before our very own eyes. This is indiscriminate bombing. It is forced starvation. The highest rate of famine in the world is now in Gaza. This is a systematic project to erase the people, the territory, and the culture of Palestine. We stand in solidarity with Mosab, and we demand that this genocide stop. Yeah. So that's what brings us together tonight, brothers and sisters and others. We are coming together under these four slogans: defend and stand with Mosab Abu Toha. Palestinian voices must not be silenced. Activists must not be punished. And we who gather together demand that that genocide stop. And in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. So tonight, here's the program. Here's the program of the program. Tonight, you're going to hear 10 incredible writers and poets, and also the national spokesperson for Revolution Books and a leader of Refuse Fascism. I want you all to know that you can video the speakers, but Please do not video the faces of those in the audience unless they give you their permission. And we are letting you know that your donations tonight are going to support the work of Mosab Abu Toha. That's where your donations tonight will go. And he has told us how those donations will reach him, okay? So we're going to start the program right now with a special musical medley. This is coming from Nick and from Ramsey. So I want to call them to the stage. This is kind of our musical prelude to a night of poetry and reading. And thank you again for coming out.
As Ray has mentioned, so this night is about Mosab Abu Toha. Hello, Mosab. I hope you can hear us later on. But the song we're going to play for you is written by Samih Al-Qasim, who was the brother-in-arm of Mahmoud Darwish, who is the quintessential Palestinian poet and who has declared the independence of Palestine in 1988 for the second time. The first time it was declared in Algeria in 1948. However, and I distributed some papers here which has the translation, and Jane has them if you don't have it. Translation and transliteration from Arabic of a song called وَأَنَا أَمْشِي. It means and I walk. And I walk in the face of the occupier. And yes, so, okay, thank you. This is oud. Unlike the guitar, you can play the microtones, so in between the half tones of Western classical music. It's one of the relatives of the guitar and the setar, S-E-T-A-R, a Persian instrument. منتصب القامة يمشي مرفوع الهامة أمشي منتصب القامة يمشي مرفوع الهامة أمشي في كفي قصفة زيتون وعلى كتفي نعشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي قلبي قمر أحمر قلبي بستان فيه العوسج فيه الريحان قلبي قمر أحمر قلبي بستان فيه العوسج فيه الريحان تمطر حينا أحيان شفتاي سماء تمطر حينا أحيان في غصفة زيتون وعلى كتفي نعشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي وأنا أمشي
Let's give Nick and Ramsey another round of applause. I'm very thrilled to announce that Mosab has sent a special message, a video message to this meeting, to this gathering, and we're going to play that right now.
Good evening, dear friends and supporters. Thank you very much for standing in solidarity with me, my work, and my family. Thank you for standing for free speech in a time when the oppressed not only get to be killed, dismembered, and disappeared, but also get to be silenced and demonized. Our right to freedom of speech is a universal right that every individual, wherever they are, must enjoy, just as every nation has the right to live freely and in dignity on their land. My poems and my work were born under the rubble of our house in Gaza. They were born in the refugee camp which Israel destroyed systematically in front of the eyes of this world, in broad daylight. We need to read our poems and express our opinions about matters that not only concern the Palestinian people, but every human individual in this world. And we must do this in broad daylight. Thank you again.
We're going to show two clips, very short clips, from Mosab's Instagram account. The first clip was posted today, and he writes, "This is a new video of the moment Israel opened fire at starved people from multiple directions. This was on Sunday, June 1st. It's from the Netzarim corridor site. These are what Israel calls warning shots."
هذا اللي يطخ لما يطلع وين وين يا وردي تعالها
يا سيد خلينا نطلع مع الناس
مع الناس محمد وين ولاد يا عم
يا خلينا
يلا يلا قوم تعالوا ول يلا شيء هذه اللقيان انت وراها يلا حمود يا حمود يلا روح طمن.
عشان الدم ينزف اربط الحبل فوق الجرس.
The second video from Mosab's account, his Instagram account today. He says, today some people from my city of Beit Lahiya tried to return after the Israeli tanks retreated hundreds of meters. These two people were going back after they picked up some stuff. From the video, it looks like clothes that they left behind. This is what has shaped Mosab's craft. And as I said in my introduction, he has been unflinching in his depiction and his reportage of the horror of this genocide. And yet, he has refused to forsake beauty. We are now going to start the program segment with readers and writers sharing their work, reading from Mosab's work, and we're going to go forward now with Chris, who's going to be introducing the first round of speakers. This is Chris, who will introduce herself and the readers that follow. Thank you.
Okay, our first reader will be Rebecca Chase, faculty associate at the Bard College Institute for Writing and Thinking, a regular contributor to the New York Times. Her third novel, Talking to the Wolf, will be out in 2026.
Thank you, Chris and Pam and Revolutionary Books for inviting me to be part of this. It's an honor. This is a very short excerpt from an essay that was published in Two Coats of Paint in February. It's called Everything Turns Away Quite Leisurely. I work at Bard College, which has partnered with Al-Quds University Palestine for 16 years. When Ibrahim, the soft-spoken director of the program, reached out about their annual faculty training session, we assumed he meant the workshops would take place on Zoom, not in person. We are in person, said Ibrahim. He was so sleepless his eyes looked bruised. It was 10 months since October 7th. I was supposed to arrive in East Jerusalem on August 10th. At the end of July, Israel carried out 2 political assassinations. Fuad Shukir, a Hezbollah leader, and Ismail Haniyeh, the lead ceasefire negotiator for Hamas. All flights to Tel Aviv were canceled. Could I fly into Jordan and take a van? We flipped to Zoom. I opened the Zoom room strung tight with first-day nerves. I didn't know these teachers, and they didn't know me. Some were new faculty and didn't even know each other. Nobody wanted to be in these floating squares where we've already spent too much time with our students. Boxes inside the boxes of our lives which we can blur or mute or switch to black. Ibrahim had said that he would start the day by introducing me with a few words of welcome. Instead, he said, "This is a terrible day at a terrible time for Palestine. I would like to begin with a minute of silence for the children." I hadn't looked at the headlines yet. It was 5:30 a.m. in New York, 12:30 p.m. in the West Bank. These teachers had been living for hours with whatever had happened while I was still asleep or yanking a proper shirt off a hanger in my closet. The range of horrors was so vast, and I knew so little. I resisted the temptation to flip to another window to see the news from Gaza while we held this silence. I was ashamed to display my ignorance, ashamed of being a citizen in the country that supplied the weapons, ashamed by the privilege of pursuing a life built around words, though everyone in this workshop had made the same choice. What practical good could writing do? I closed my eyes. Israel had bombed the Al-Tabayin school in Gaza City at dawn. The school was being used as a shelter. More than 200 people were on one floor for morning prayers. Another floor was sheltering women and children. It was the largest number of women and children killed in a bomb strike since the war began. A surgeon at Al-Ali Hospital said that the severely burned bodies of the wounded, including children, was very difficult to watch. I invited the teachers to write privately for 5 minutes. I explained that we would be doing a lot of writing together over the next 5 days. The teachers nodded, floating above an empty room with chairs placed around a seminar table in Abu Dis. I asked them to write in response to an image, The Fall of Icarus by Bruegel the Elder. As the painting filled the screen, I asked them to turn to a poem in their anthology. We read it aloud, taking turns, reading it backwards. If we were in person, I would have had us out of our chairs, walking around the room as we put the poem in the air. Musée des Beaux-Arts by W.H. Auden. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position. How it takes place while someone else is eating, or opening a window, or just walking dully along. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course, anyhow in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life, and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone, as it had to, on the white legs disappearing into the green water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to, and sailed calmly on. I asked them to choose one line and write back to it. I invited them to interrupt my next reading of the poem with something they had written. A teacher I will call Malik was a quiet man who spoke more and more as the days went on. He told us that he had been unable to leave his home in Ramallah since the beginning of the war. On the day he finally decided to risk a visit to his brother, driving the car with his sister, wife, and 3 children, the road was blocked by 2 Israeli soldiers in an open jeep, though it wasn't a checkpoint. As the family waited in a line of cars, one of the soldiers raised his machine gun and fired at the hillside above the road. A body fell backward. It was a Friday night, said Malik. Many women were walking with their children carrying plastic shopping bags from the market. They ran when they heard the gunfire, but there was nowhere to go but straight in front of them, no way off the road. Malik turned his car around and drove back to Ramallah. When I read aloud the penultimate line from Auden, something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, Malik interrupted with what he had written in response. I wish that all the children could remain in the sky. Anyways, we're quite done. I know, Malik. Nobody spoke. In one sentence, Malik flipped the myth of Icarus to a Palestine where every parent is a Daedalus without feathers, twine, wood, or harness leather, where children soar above the ruins on homemade wings held together by beeswax. And now from Mosab, this is from an excerpt from the New Yorker on February 12th, 2025. We need to replant devastated fields so that Palestinian farmers can grow our food again. We need to replace sites of death with hospitals where people can heal. We need an end to the state of siege that surrounds us. And the people who shape this future need to be us Palestinians, not the people who made Gaza look like a demolition site, or who now seem to think that an entire people should be demolished too. All of these things are important, but nothing is more important than staying. Thank you.
That was powerful. Okay, next up, Rue Freeman, a Sri Lankan and American writer, poet, and activist whose work appears internationally and in translation. Her latest book is Bone Courage, Essays on Inheritance, Citizenship, and a Creative Life.
I have a lot of books here, but don't worry, I'm not going to hijack the whole event. You'll see why I have them. I'm going to bookend some things I want to read from my own work with poems from Mosab. The first piece I'm going to read is from Things You Find Hidden in My Ear. Discoveries. That is where we are. I mean, it's good to know where we are. Oh no, it's fine. It's like a baby crying. Discoveries. We are fine, even though we don't feel well. Gaza is okay, although it has nothing to make her feel that way. In Gaza, the sun shines and the moon flirts with the leaves of the orange trees. However, Gaza's people come and go empty-handed. No good news to give to their children, no candy to sweeten their pale mouths, and no light to read by. Hard exercise. In Gaza, breathing is a task. Smiling is performing plastic surgery on one's own face, and rising in the morning trying to survive another day is coming back from the dead. I'm going to read a few excerpts from a preface to this other book, and you'll see why. Over Christmas and New Year of 2008, Israel, within inverted commas, as I speak, bombed Gaza, killing 1,417 people, 313 of them children. On a long-distance phone call, my father asked me this question: what are American writers saying about this? A lifelong advocate for global social justice, my father spoke on into my silence. There were American writers, he said, who had written about the Vietnam War. Then he added, "It was your publisher who brought out that book. Can't you get them to do the same for a volume of writing about Palestine?" What can and cannot be done in America is a question that carries enormous hope on the part of people who do not live here, and a corresponding despondency on the part of those who do. I could have gone on to an explanation of it, but I, raised by such a father in a family where what needed to be done was what we focused on, never on the obstacles to that work, knew better than to make excuses. I hung up the phone and set out to see what was possible. The publication he was referring to had august origins. In 1937, writer and activist Nancy Cunard and W.H. Auden had posed a singular question to 200 authors. Are you for or against the legal government and people of Republican Spain? Are you for or against Franco and fascism? For it is impossible any longer to take no side. 147 authors responded, and that was published as Authors Take Sides on the Spanish War by Left Review Books. And those writers included Samuel Beckett, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot. 30 years later, in 1967, building on that tradition as they put it in their opening remarks, editors at Simon & Schuster undertook a similar exercise regarding Vietnam and asked a different question. Are you for or against U.S. intervention in Vietnam? The responses resulted in the collection Authors Take Sides on Vietnam, Peter Owen. 160 writers in that collection, and they included James Baldwin, Nelson Algren, Simone de Beauvoir, Marian Moore, and Arthur Miller. 43 years after that, I believed, like my father did, that surely we might ask ourselves a similar question about Palestine. It seemed long overdue that our generation of writers, people who understood the power of the written word, face our responsibility to add our voices to a vital conversation. Yet, despite much wringing of hands and the horrific news out of Gaza that ticked across social media, nobody joined. I wrote to publishers asking if they might be willing to carry out such a project. There was no response. In 2014, I asked again for a simple show of hands. Who might speak for Palestine? The impetus to ask a group of writers to set their names down beside their own reflections on the ongoing assault on the thin and shifting borders of Palestine and the people who are confined to that tenuous landscape became freshly impossible to set aside in the face of the 2014 assault on Gaza, when Israel killed 2,104 Palestinians, including 495 children. In the face of such numbers and the fact that we as Americans, willingly or not, fund the perpetration of such violence through our taxes, but more so by our silence, I felt that we needed to confront the reality that Cunard and Auden articulated in 1937. It is impossible any longer to take no side. We are fond of identifying ourselves with victims during certain historical moments. We were all Americans during 9/11. We were all from Newtown in the aftermath of that shooting. We all rose and fell with the Berlin Wall, with Nelson Mandela and the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. Yet we are rarely inclined to commit our art to documenting how exactly this comes to be. How does, in this case, the struggle in Palestine belong to us all? The spirit behind the anthology I edited, Extraordinary Rendition, American Writers on Palestine, I brought one copy of it with me, so to someone I will give it away. That's this one. And to which this essay in a different form served as the preface was that it would first compel us to set our names down beside each other as writers, willing to remove the barrier between the story we hear and or are told and ourselves. Secondly, that it would permit the creation of a new way of thinking about how we, as writers and readers, might raise our voices against the seeming inevitability of war and a culture of dispossession and invasion that has been allowed to remain unquestioned for too long. As I was getting ready for this reading, I found this slip of paper that I had put in here during some other reading, where I had done some research, where it says, according to the Congressional Research Service report, by 2015, the US was providing $10.2 million a day for the occupation. And many people in this country do not want to hear this other part, that $3.7 billion was given to Israel under Obama. So there is no one ideological umbrella that can fit these 65 voices. There's only one thing that unites them, and that is a desire to mitigate, if not reconcile, the rift between national policy and personal moral culpability, that one-on-one that is the heart of compassion. I once wrote that we jump off the ledges of our fear because we know a net exists, and the only way to know it does is to participate in its creation. As a literary citizen of the world, it is necessary to acknowledge the way in which the private conduct of our lives can move toward and, with time, bring to fruition the public work which becomes our true and perhaps most lasting legacy. I'll close with this poem from Mosab. We love what we have. We love what we have, no matter how little, because if we don't, everything will be gone. If we don't, we will no longer exist, since there will be nothing here for us. What's here is something that we are still building. It's something we cannot yet see, because we are part of it. Someday soon, this building will stand on its own while we will be the trees that protect it from the fierce wind, the trees that will give shade to children sleeping inside or playing on swings. Thanks.
Okay, next up, Barbara Fishkin, author of 3 books, including Muddy Cup, A Dominican Family Comes of Age in New America.
Hello, and thank you all. It's nice to see a crowd for something like this. It's nice to see a crowd. It's also nice to hear me, right? Now you can. I'm going to start with Mosab because there's a poem in here that really speaks to me. And I think you'll see why after I read what I'm going to read that I wrote. Here it is. It is called Olympic Hopscotch Leap. We sit and drink tea in the hot night of Ramadan. Boys play hide and seek. Girls hopscotch around. Mothers chat and laugh. A buzzing sound of drones flying above my family and friends stops the games, the chatting, and the laughter. A missile falls, only falling into farmland nearby. Shrapnel cuts electric wires. Dusts tops off our tea like a latte foam. More missiles come flying in, on the lookout for anything that moves. Angels get hold of my infant niece. We look around and find only her milk bottle. And now, what I have done. Reading that poem, I think of the collateral damage of war. Heartbreaking even when we hear about one murdered child, only one child. The Digger Resistance, a novel I am writing, focuses on 3 sons from different times and places. 2 caught in war, none able to speak, 1 diagnosed with autism. Today, the other 2 would be, as is my elder son. This is also about their mothers, so I feel close to these characters, although they are fictional. One of the mothers who knows about collateral damage well is the Berlin-based wife of a World War II German SS officer. He tells her he has taken their mute 3-year-old son to be murdered to set an example. The boy is life unworthy of life. She must warn other mothers with the assistance of a guilt-ridden Nazi sympathizer. She sends out letters on scraps of brown paper carried by traveling peddlers. And this is about one of those letters as depicted in the book I'm writing, The Digger Resistance. 1,000 kilometers away from Berlin, on the muddy road of Ukrainian shtetl town, a peddler steered his wagon and its 2 horses towards the blacksmith shop of an aging widow. Chaya Manya Ziegel was a widowed woman blacksmith, working bold under the eyes of her God, Hashem. This awed the peddler. She put excellent shoes on his horses, and he brought her the goods she needed: the strongest nails, the sharpest tools, the most absorbent cloth. He stepped down from his wagon and prayed to Hashem to give him the courage to make the delivery he had for her today. The stove kept Chaya Manya's kitchen warm, but the peddler sat huddled in his sheepskin coat, his large leather bag by his feet. He stared at the soup she set down for him. Chaya Manya nodded at him to eat. "Your son is still a good boy," the peddler said. He had always taken an interest in Chaya Manya's odd son, who grunted but did not speak. Now the boy was at the Harlem Mental Hospital in Poland, look it up, to be taught. The peddler felt his absence. He wondered if this delivery, sorry, I knew this would happen, if this delivery was too late. He reached into his leather bag and took out a brown envelope that contained a crumpled sheet of brown paper. What? Hayamanya asked. Who would write me? The peddler lowered his gray beard and reached back into his leather bag. He took out a small bottle of absinthe and handed it to Hayamanya. She inhaled the strong anise, the sweet florals, and took a large gulp. Her brain flooded with all the doctors to whom she had written until they stopped answering. In German it is, the peddler said. Hayamanya's hand shook. She took another gulp from the bottle. I don't read German. The peddler took another crumpled paper from the envelope. There is a Yiddish translation. The peddler got up and stood behind her. Other mothers had fainted. Hayamanya examined the second paper, the alphabet, hers, the letters hers, and began reading aloud. Quote, I cannot reveal who I am or where I live. I was the mother of a beautiful 3-year-old boy who was strange and could not speak. The Fuhrer killed him, as he now plans to do with people of all ages who are not perfect. The Fuhrer has brought in children, 3 and younger. Soon it will be children under 17, and then adults. He will starve them, drug them, or gas them, or perhaps keep them alive a while for brutal experimentation. This is the Nazi euthanasia, quote unquote, of the disabled. I beg of you, if you have a child or a relative who does not seem on the surface to be smart, or a child who does not walk, or a child who has something else amiss, do not let anyone convince you to send that child or relative to a clinic or hospital or other facility under the guise that they will be educated or helped, or that it will be better for your family, your other children, your standing among neighbors, and your safety in wartime. At all costs, keep them with you. If you send your child or a relative to a clinic, you will in all likelihood receive an official letter that he or she died from heart or lung failure or perhaps tuberculosis, even if that child left you physically healthy despite being otherwise damaged. The letter will be a lie. I have been forced to write such lying letters, even as the mother of a child who was killed. If you have sent your child to a clinic and received such a letter, may the Lord God our Savior bless you. It is probably too late. I wish I could have warned you sooner. If after the war you can spread the truth about such letters, please know that there will be a place in heaven for you and your families, the place for witnesses. Thank you.
All right. Next is David Ruff, a poet and independent book editor. His most recent book is Live in Suspense.
Thank you. That's David Groff with a G. So, thank you all for being here and for putting this powerful event together. I will read 3 poems, but first I want to start with a poem by Mosab, and it is called Mosab. My father gave me a difficult name. Inside it sit 2 letters that don't exist in English. My father didn't know I would have English-speaking friends, always asking how to pronounce my name or trying to avoid saying it. But Dad, I like to hear others address me by name, especially friends. Even my name's root means difficult. A camel that is described as Mosab is one that's difficult to mount and ride. But I'm not difficult in any way. I will undress myself and show you my shoulders, how dust has come to rest on them, my chest, how tears have wet its thin skin, my back, how sweat has made it pale, the spot where my mother fed me before birth. The same spot, they say, the angel of death will pierce to take away my soul. Now, at night, my son's head hurts when he rests it on my belly. And my clothes, I feel them loose, while others see them tight on me. When someone from the life insurance company calls and pronounces my name in English, I see the angel of death in the mirror, with eyes that watch me crumbling on this foreign ground. When I read poems, even just 3, which is what I'm going to read tonight, I always try to end on a more positive note. But given the poems I've been writing lately that in some way or another grapple with where we are, I'm still in the place of exploring the problem rather than, I think, doing the work of repair. So please excuse that and see these as poems, perhaps in process for me. There are 3, they're short. I'll read them. I'll explain one maybe a bit. Climate change. The once a century storm arrives in 4-year terms. The clapboard we rebuilt splinters in bayonets of wind. The sky itself seems shocked at its militia of rain. We don't think like refugees with our delicate constitutions. The heat becomes so great we freeze. We thought we were precautious. We lack insurance. Our escape plan scratched out on a door jamb, wrenched horizontal into a battering ram. Now, charging into our padded panic room is the official fist of the Earth's new order. What is metaphor? Thank you. There's a poem you probably all know by William Wordsworth that begins, I wandered lonely as a cloud, and it's about seeing lots of daffodils. And it's a really, really irritating poem. You kind of want to smack him. So I thought about that. I've been surrounded this spring by daffodils and thought about that and thought about Wordsworth and appropriated him a bit, as you may hear in this poem called Daffodils in Tyranny. They promise nothing beyond the planted bulb budding in time. It's burgeoning now, early and overheated, but they stay gold, blooming and drooping in time, in unison, knowing only their genes' continuous doing, unless the sword cuts them, or the long gun, the love beads of the bully's bullets beheads and tosses them, unless their dance is boot-trampled by a host of soldiers, 10,000 seen in a cloud of crowd, their inward eye of pistol killed, unseated, unwandered, the bulb unreplanted, too lonely for spring. This last poem is titled by, has the title of something I do as probably my main hobby, and I expect a lot of you to have the same hobby. The poem is called Doom Scroll. The synapses spark, the cortisol spurts, attention summons attention, and the whole self stings. And then the nerves go numb. But it feels to you so vital to know each new spasm of disaster, the latest curl in the fist, the lifting of the fist, the scenario slightly skewed as the new nuance reveals, as if each matter matters, as if knowing it all is action and a chance at rescue, preventing the final door from closing on your neck, disallowing the dark of the darkened railroad car, as if in reading you run, fight, flee, and freeze. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Pam Laskin, poet and author of young adult novels. Before retiring, she directed the Poetry Outreach Center at CCNY.
Yeah.
I want to thank all of the writers who are here today, who got probably 50 million emails from me every day. And I want to thank Revolution Books. There are too many names to begin, but Raymond and Brenda and Connie, I've been working very closely with you. Chris and Candy, thank you. And thank you, audience, for coming out today. And I encourage you to also buy the books of the authors, because they will get part of it, but so will the money, but so will Revolution Books. And put some money, if you can, even a few dollars, into the pot, which will, of course, help Mosab and his family, as you heard. So thank you, everyone. And I will start with two poems, short poems by Mosab, untitled. A father wakes up at night, sees the random colors on the walls drawn by his 4-year-old son, that he's dead, but he's dead after an airstrike. The colors are about 4 feet high. Next year, they would be 5 or 6. But the painter is dead, and the museum has no new paintings to show. And the second poem is, as David said, he tries to be positive. This is a more positive one, but I'm not writing positive ones now. A rose, shoulders up. Don't ever be surprised to see a rose shoulder up among the ruins of the house. This is how we survived. And this is a found poem. Like Barbara, I was not just reading about Gaza, but the wars in Sudan and Ukraine and all of the people who are now getting disappeared. So it's a composite of different news stories in a poem. Big birthday, age 10. Bundle of bones laying in bed, a beauty. Blue eyes, dark skin, but can't eat without arms, walk without legs, can cry out for mama, now dead, to bring her a balloon for this big birthday. The second poem, Once Our Home, to the 8-year-old who lost her family in a bombing. Flesh, a bandage for brokenness, gangrene grief you can't treat, since my baby brother died in the arms of mama, papa, all clinging to splinters of stone, once our home. And finally, I'm reading one poem, which is another genocide, Why No Goodbye, and it's about the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. It's a young adult novel, and today I got notice, but I found out last week that it is now being highlighted among several other books in Harvard's bookstore. And I felt very proud that it was in Harvard. Not that I'm necessarily invested in Harvard, except I like the way they're standing up to the Trump administration. So that was very exciting. They sent me a picture of it tonight, and this is the book, and it was also posted from my publisher, Leapfrog, as a fundraiser for the recent earthquake in Myanmar. And they've raised a lot of money selling the book, which is why I think Harvard was interested in it. And this was from the point of the view of the boy who's telling what happened to his family, which is like what's happening to children now in Gaza and in other war-torn countries. One night, they barged into the hut, military men, and you told us to pretend to sleep. But I heard the shrieking, the crying, saw the pools of red bleeding on the floor. Please stop. Yak, stop. And the men, they laughed. And when my sister, just a baby, cried, they laughed even harder. Thank you. I'm giving 2 copies of this book to the bookstore. So if you want to buy one, the money will go to Mosab. And now I am taking over hosting. So I'd like to call Alicia Ostreicher, New York State Poet Laureate from 2018. Her latest book is Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Time. Welcome, Alicia.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Revolution Books. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, everyone who is here. I'm going to read a couple of poems of Mosab's and a couple of mine, short ones. Icarus Falling, which was mentioned earlier. According to Bruegel in 2023, Icarus did not fall in the sea. He got hit by a bomb or a tank shell. Shrapnel scattered his body over the ruins of bombed houses and schools and museums. There was no plowman, but the strawberries and grass continued to grow, and the dogs and cats under the moonlight scavenged piles of corpses. No one heard the pieces of shrapnel falling in the sea or the drone's buzzing sound. And I have been in anguish over what my country has come to represent. When I was a kid, I distinctly remember 1948, when the United Nations was born and Israel was born. I think I was 10. And I was so happy. The United Nations. Now there was going to be no more nationalism and no more wars about nationalism. I thought. And I was proud of Israel. And today, I'm ashamed of Israel. I am not ashamed of being a Jew. I'm glad to be a Jew. I'm glad to be a Jew who is in anguish over what Israel is doing today. find this poem. Plague Time Ritual. And I've altered this poem slightly. Plague Time Ritual. As I daily wipe each piece of mail with Clorox before opening to protect myself from the virus, I wish we could wipe ourselves clean of envy, of anger, of hatred, symptoms of another lifelong contagious illness. I don't believe in original sin, so what in hell is it infecting us year after year, traveling through space in bullets of resentment, greed, terror, blood, hatred, wounded? How cleanse? How heal? Now, now I lost the poem I was going to read here. I'll read another. Palestinian village. On the hill in the village you can chalk the wheels of your vegetable cart with a stone your grandfather once used to crush time, or smash garlic with a stone your grandmother used as a doorstop. You can lounge on a wicker chair near a pomegranate tree where a canary never tires of singing. You can dig a hole with your hands and find an earthworm breathing, the freshness of soil revived by yesterday's rain. You can make tea with sage or mint. If a neighbor or passerby smells it, an invitation to join is extended. You put more cups on your table. You walk to the garden and pick more fresh sage or more mint. And this poem of mine is called Winter Light. The force that sends light through the cracks in everything needs eyes to see. May it find us. May it find our eyes, enlighten our minds, gladden our days. Even in the dark, even in the gray of winter and war in the world. May our eyes see the beauty and sorrow of the world clearly and keenly, and may light lead us to love. Thank you.
And now thank you, Alicia, and now a short video by Dan Sheehan, editor of Bookmarks at lidhub.org and author of the novel Restless Souls.
My name is Dan Sheehan. I'm an editor at Literary Hub and a novelist. And today I'd like to read you a poem from Mosab Abu Toha's most recent collection, Forest of Noise. This is Daughter by Mosab Abu Toha. I ask her to remember, not because I want to hear the story again, but because I want to watch her face relive the moment. That moment, her eyes sparkle with longing. I can see how she flies from the tent to a time when she leapt through our farm in every direction with eyes closed, only stopping at the fence where our orange trees embrace our neighbours' olive trees. Some fallen oranges would tell her to open her eyes, to pick them up and put them in a plate at our doorstep, where children returning from school would stop to gulp some. I love the smell of oranges best when she remembers. Thank you, Mosab, for your words, for your courage, for your relentless advocacy for the humanity of your people. I dearly hope we can all get together again someday soon to celebrate your work in better times.
And next, Amber C. Snyder, a former student of mine, which is very exciting, journalist whose articles have appeared in the New York Times and Teen Vogue, and the author of Wonderman 2025. And I thought of contacting Amber because I recently went to her book launch, and her book was all about spirituality and getting into the essence of your soul. And it really reminded me in that way of the positivity in Mosab's work. So welcome, Amber.
It's really an honor to be here with all of you. And thank you, Pam, for having me. Thank you, Revolution Books, for putting on this event. It's a very sacred and special night indeed. I'm going to start out with two of Toha's poems. One is called Memories Are Flowers. Memories are flowers. We water them, narrate them, turn them into poems, into plays, into stories. We decorate them with light bulbs, with metaphors of different hues in varied clubs. Some memories are nasty. They have rank smells and coarse, prickly skin. No matter how deeply inhumed the bones, the warmth of sweet memories shall find their way. And this is another one of his poems. And yeah, this is his work. Memorize your dream. Close your eyes and walk on the ocean. Dabble your hands in the water and catch your poem's words. Write the words up on the clouds. Don't worry, they'll find their land. Open your eyes in the night. The sea is no longer blue. Look around and from the descending raindrops, pick your punctuation marks. Put on your swimsuit. Dive deep down and look for a title for your epic. Embark on your moving homeland, your boat. Go to your bed, and in your sleep, begin to memorize your dream. So I'm going to read from my book here. It's called Wonderment. Each chapter is rooted in a particular theme, but also a time and place in the world. Then it moves into a deep dive into the topic, whether that's the nature of consciousness or how to tap into your own spiritual gifts. This is from the chapter entitled The Power of Myth, Storytelling, and Ritual. And this is part of the deep dive of it. It's not my personal narrative. It's the deep dive section. So I thought it was rather fitting in relationship to these poems. Among the most famous sayings from ancient Greece, inscribed in the temple of Apollo at Delphi, were the words, "Know thyself." In Greece's golden age, a time imbued with architectural, artistic, mathematical, and literary triumphs, knowing thyself was a philosophical pinnacle. Yet we can only ever truly know ourselves through the lens of the other. That is, we need each other in order to recognize ourselves and see ourselves clearly. The macrocosm of society mirrors and projects back to the microcosm of the self. But to know oneself requires language, a medium of exchange, a vessel of communication. It requires narrative and reason. It also requires remembrance, continuity, and remembering the past. But when the continuity of language and storytelling is severed, we are left psychically injured, cut off from invaluable, invisible parts of ourselves, as well as the value of our shared histories. Simply look at the devastating spiritual and physical effects of the erasure of women's histories, BIPOC histories, or any marginalized group of people who've suffered by the hands of those in power. It's been a systemic and systematic erasure, one that has led to silencing, disconnection, and violence. And from that, there's also been a kind of severance, a severance or shattering of identity, voice, and power. To erase and shatter the collective and individual narrative stories of others, to destroy culture, is the worst kind of evil. It aims to strike down and annihilate humanity itself. When the ability to know or share one's story is severed, when our shared mythologies are erased, there you will find trauma and disconnection. And when one does not have the narrative means to share that experience due to subjugation, erasure, censorship, etc., it becomes an issue of survival. Storytelling is more than a pastime. It is a means of survival. I'm going to skip around a little for time's sake. For survivors of trauma, according to Dory Lobb, not telling one's story can serve as a perpetuation of its tyranny. Quote, the events become more and more distorted in their silent retention and pervasively invade and contaminate the survivor's daily life, end quote. Our concepts of the self are dependent on the stories we tell ourselves and others, but when one's history is abolished, one's identity ceases to exist as well. And under extreme traumatic conditions, memories can become displaced in the brain. Think of the brain as a filing cabinet with millions of different folders. Normal, everyday memories are stored in these folders, but they all make up a larger whole, that is, the brain. But traumatic memories lack a traditional folder. There's quite literally no place for them to go in the filing cabinet, so they become disassociated. Since some traumatic memories can't be integrated into the brain's existing schemas, they become removed from conscious awareness. This phenomena also extends to society at large, where atrocities of the past are buried under forgotten rubble, washed away, covered up, and hidden, yet they're still there. We have been in a state of crisis for quite some time, and societal issues were exacerbated in the wake of the global pandemic. We see the symptoms of it through social and political divisions, racial disparities, religious intolerance, violations of human rights, economic iniquities, mental health issues, and gun violence. We are hurting, and we are calling out for answers. But we have stopped listening to the earth. We have stopped listening to our inner voice, and we have turned away from our inner vision, our inner wisdom, and lessons of the past. This is where both storytelling and bearing witness come into play. The integration of myth, ritual, spirituality, nature-based practices, and remembering is imperative. It's essential to our intellectual, emotional, psychic growth, and our survival as a species. Just as we are, quote, well advised to keep on nodding terms with the people we used to be, as Joan Didion once wrote in her famous essay, we also must keep on nodding terms with the stories of the past, both individual and collective, lest they become ghosts and come, quote, hammering on the mind's door at 4 a.m. of a dark night and demand to know who deserted them, who betrayed them, who is going to make amends. Lastly, and I'll wrap up here, this is part of an essay, so I'm skipping around. If it seems disjointed, my apologies. It is through storytelling and the act of remembering or remembering, aka putting things back together again so that one can create a bridge between the past, present, and future. The act of remembering creates a bridge between this world and the next, that is the physical world and the ethereal, and unites the present, past, and future. While we shouldn't live entirely in the past or in the future, memories and stories have a way of transcending the present, creating continuity between worlds. Thank you so much.
And I repeat before I call up our last reader, which is Barry Wallenstein. Well, we have two more readers, and you have to stay for Andy Z. You can't leave, okay? Barry Wallenstein is Emeritus Professor of Literature and Creative Writing at CCNY, author of 13 collections of poetry, including his 2025 Old Men Out. And I wouldn't have been a full-time faculty member at City and run the Poetry Outreach Center if not for Barry Wallenstein. So give him a big round of applause.
This is my second time here, and it's very important and moving. And I began the last time with my favorite proverb from Senegal: I am because we are. I like that better than Descartes. So I will read a poem that I found inspiring by Mosab called What is Home? What is home? It is the shade of trees on my way to school before they were uprooted. It is my grandparents' black and white wedding photo before the walls crumbled. It is my uncle's prayer rug where dozens of ants slept on wintry nights before it was looted and put in a museum. It is the oven my mother used to bake bread and roast chicken before a bomb reduced our house to ashes. It is the cafe where I watched football matches and played. My child stops me. Can a four-letter word hold all of these? And I read that poem while working on a new poem called Thoughts of Home. And it changes because of that poem. Home is where the door unlocks and the key is put aside and the calloused foot bathed and a heart murmurs steadied by a pill. This is a place to lie down in and where someday, who place teeth in a glass, give up moving up and fanning the sparks. But should one spark fall wrong, inflamed by an innocent gust or evil intent, here the place is done for. For while some neighbors weep and mourn, while others cheer for the flames and promise more. And this, I wrote at the outbreak of this Israeli war. Wartime blues, blast. The war, when we're lucky, happens outside this room. Safe inside, we suffer the usual, the persistent headache, the eternal sniffle, the pictures on TV of toddlers out there holding the wheel. Blast. The locusts of Abaddon form a cloud over the front lines. Other angels of the abyss frown upon a main battle tank, where the brain-dead driver, scorched by a blaze, stalls and then drives on. Blast. War now, as in the past, troubles the living to bury the dead. The innocent, the killing instinct, possessed even by the well-dressed, proves itself. The wildfires of Greece are spreading. Thank you.
Oops, sorry. And now Andy Z., Revolution Book spokesperson, editorial board of RefuseFascism.org, host of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Welcome, Andy Z., and he has an important message to share with you. And hi, Sahura.
I have some remarks, but listening to the poets, it spoke to me again about what never again should really mean. Never again should mean not to anybody, anywhere, and not whatever was done to me or my people justifies whatever I do. And what struck me tonight was the words of the poet. Kind of ends those, or breaks through the pain of the nights of looking at videos from Gaza. Because it brings hope in what people, the poets here, brought to tonight. And I appreciate the poets and all the speakers tonight who've contributed to this evening in defense of Mosab Abu Toha. The poets and all of you took responsibility to continue his book tour when the actions of reactionary Zionists and the overall repressive fascist regime in this country have made it too difficult and dangerous for a poet to read his work and continue his tour. And I want to express my appreciation to Revolution Books, the whole crew, and to Raymond Latta and to Pam for pulling this together. I don't know if you fully realize how important it is that you did this. And it's completely fitting that this event is happening here. This is a store about the world and for a radically new world. A world with a radically new and far better way to live, for a fundamentally different system in which we could go to work to overcome all the divisions that exist in the world between nations, between nationalities, genders, races, between those of us who've had the opportunity to work with our minds and those who are locked out of that, between those who grow the food we eat and make the things we need, and those who determine what gets produced, whether or not it enriches the body or the soul. Yes, and an atheistic communist said the soul. At Revolution Books, this is not just a lofty aspiration, but we have a concrete vision and a concrete blueprint for how that could really be in the Constitution for a new socialist republic here in North America, authored by the revolutionary leader whose work we feature in this store, Bob Avakian, who has developed a new communism, which is a radical breakthrough in the fight to overcome all forms of oppression and exploitation, which now is posed existentially to all of us, whether or not there even will be a habitable earth for our children and grandchildren, and maybe even for us at the rate things are going, let alone the danger of increased war that could escalate into even a nuclear war. Pay close attention. This is actually maturing right now as we sit here. It is extremely dangerous, but there is a way out of this madness, and you can find that in this store. And I want to beseech all of you to have the curiosity and the integrity to, when somebody says there's a way out of the madness, that it's your responsibility to look into that. And if you disagree, fine. But do not yourselves or allow others to slander what has been represented in this work without engaging it. For too many years in too many places, such things have been done, and then it takes the history books to say, if only we had paid attention back then. Thank you. as I began impromptu saying that what's been done tonight in Revolution Books in support of Mosab has deeply touches me, and I think all of you as well. And Mosab's work has touched people all around the world in bringing the lives of the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza, but all over Palestine, the brutal reality of a genocide that is really unspeakable, and it brings you right into the heart and into our minds. His journalism is poetic, while his poetry reveals the reality and the persistence of memory dreams, and he speaks of courage, even in the cry of darkness and rage. Words matter, poetry matters. Mosab's work, his poetry and his commentary tell differently, and with an intimacy that takes us beyond those videos I spoke of carnage and cruelty that keep us up at night and shock the conscience. But it is the power of art, as my friend and this bookstore's dear friend, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, has said, or I may put it this way, this is an honor to his memory, and we'll do something for him for those who don't know him. But I recall that Ngugi called himself a dream weaver, and he titled his childhood memoir, Dreams in a Time of War. I thought of this when I read Mosab's poem cited in the statement in his defense. The birds wake up and look for food. They chirp on blossoming trees laden with fruit, with peaches, apples, apricots, and oranges. And we are still looking for Palestinians, dream weavers. In closing, the danger. Now let me say one more thing about Ngugi wa Thiong'o. When he opened the store here, he said to me, and he had just written a theoretical work, and he said to me, if it's okay, I'm going to talk about space travel and time travel. Is that all right? And I said, yeah, man, go do whatever you want to do, you know. But I'm thinking like, damn, because I thought he was going to read from his new book, you know. I just thought, now we're going to talk about space travel. Maybe he's lost his materialism. He's lost his hatred of imperialism, his decolonizing the mind. Maybe got so, what's he going to do? So he said to the audience, I can do this to you too. Who here had breakfast this morning? Oh yeah, most of you. Now, can you picture yourself eating that breakfast? I've just showed you how to time and space travel. So, what Ngugi was trying to say is the power of literature, the power of a story to make you imagine what things had been like, what they are now for people other than yourselves, and what the future could be. And that's what it means to be a dream weaver. And that's what we see in Mosab as well. In closing, the danger for Mosab's life and for his future and for the future of all those children in Palestine is very real, because right now, not only are we dealing with a vicious Zionist fascist state in Israel, but we are being ruled by a fascist regime right here in this country that is well on the road to eliminating the rule of law, to criminalizing dissent, to shutting down critical thinking and art that departs from the narrative of white supremacy, male supremacy, and hatred of foreigners. This is not a world you want to live in. And it is not a world you should wait to see if it really happens, because somewhere inside here you believe it can't really happen here. It is happening. It is happening now. There is still a chance to stop it, but that's going to require all of you. Not only do we have to stand up for the truth tellers, but we must not accept a fascist future that really does loom before us. And as it was said earlier, I am one of the initiators of Refuse Fascism and co-writer of The Call to Conscience, A Call to Act. And that call to conscience and to access, there can be no conciliation or collaboration between the world we want and the country they want. And the future depends on each of us and all of us becoming part of a movement that soon engages in continual and unrelenting struggle from coast to coast, not stopping until this regime is removed from power, making it impossible for them to consolidate a fascist America. This is why we say, and I think this is consistent with Mosab and the work that we've heard tonight from the poets, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. It's in the name of humanity, not just for me, not just for my family, my block, my city, my town, my country, my humanity, because we live in the most powerful country in the world, and when that gets ruled by a fascist regime, it's going to impact the entire world and potentially foreclose the future. But there is still time, as people spoke to here tonight, we can take heart from at last Harvard's stood up. Rachel Cohn, a young legal advocate at, or I think she's actually an attorney at Skadden Arps, has left that firm along with others to form a law firm of the people who do not want to go along with the collaboration of their employers. But this has to be on a societal scale, and not just resisting within organizations, but in flooding the streets of every town. It has been done. Never in a country like this has fascism, when it took root, been stopped before a war. But it could be done. We can look to South Korea more recently. Different country, yes, but some of the lessons from that, where every night they were unrelenting over months and months and months. They didn't let it happen, and that's what we must do now. So in a little over a week, this is believable, even though it seems unbelievable. Trump is having a military parade on the 14th of June. This is something that Hitler did. I'm fairly certain, although I have to go back and look, that Mussolini did the same thing. A parade on his birthday of the military. Judith Levine has written in The Guardian, let's call June 14th what it promises to be, the ceremonial birth of the United States' 21st fascist regime. And understand that this parade, and I'm going off script here because I know I'm taking a little more time, but I think this is important. I can tell people want to know what to do. This parade is not just something trivial. It's not a matter of standing aside from this parade. This parade is designed to establish consent in two forms. One, all the people who like it and take delight in it and think, well, what's the harm? I'm not against the military. What's the problem here? Well, the problem is the fascization of the military is a major step towards fascism. And make no mistake, he has purged, as of what's today, the 4th, right? 2 days ago, all trans people from the military, in the most ugly language coming from the Secretary of Defense. He's purged, at the highest levels, all black people from the military. He has changed the orders of the military. They have taken over 450 books that deal with the real history of this country and diversity from the libraries of military academies, but they have kept Mein Kampf in the military libraries. Now, you know some of this, I can hear that in the crowd, but this is something that has to be opposed and refuse fascism while we are uniting around the country with the No Kings marches in different cities that are happening. We are saying it is wrong not to be in Washington. It is wrong to cede the nation's capital to fascism. And so we're calling on people from here to come down and join us on Saturday the 14th. We're going to be raising the demand. The Trump regime, the Trump fascist regime must go now. We've already secured a permit for 1 in the afternoon. That's going to march from north of the White House, only a mile to the White House, and have a rally there. It will end about 3 hours before the military parade begins at the Pentagon and gets to the mall in the evening for the presentation of an American flag from the troops dropped from helicopters. And this is unbelievable spectacle, and then presented to Trump as a symbol of his taking charge of the country. And this cannot, so we are not directly confronting the march itself, and we've worked this out. But so it's important, though, that we be there. And I want to really beseech all of you to come to Washington with us on next Saturday. So with that, I want to thank once again Pam and everybody for this program. And I urge you to stay around and talk with us and to engage the work of Mosab, the other poets, and of the Constitution for a New Socialist Republic in North America.
There's one more reader who was left off the program, and she only has a short poem. She traveled 2 hours from upstate New York.
Well, we got time.
So, I told her just an excerpt and one poem of Mosab. So welcome Laura Hinton, who is a journalist, scholar, faculty member, poet, and maybe she will actually mention this event and the reading from Mosab. So just stay just 2 more minutes, folks. I know everyone's tired and it's been a long day.
The stairs over here.
Oh, this way.
There you go. Got it.
I know. That's a problem.
Come here. Thank you, everyone. And then stay and buy books. Stay and buy books after.
Well, Pam, I sent it to her for the bio, and she liked the poem that was with the bio. So,
A short version of it.
yeah, very short. It's a very long poem, and it's about. I think it's appropriate in that what I was just hearing. Everybody is very involved in what's happening in this country. There's a flotilla also heading for Gaza.
Right.
And do you know what Lindsey Graham said?
I hope they can swim.
I hope Greta and her friends can swim. So that's the kind of evil that's happening. I've had a lot of trouble with the evil since the first Trump administration. So I have been filtering my disgustedness through studying empire, a very ancient empire, the Empire of Rome. And I go to the sites, and I spend a lot of time in Italy now since I retired from the City College of New York as a professor. And I go to the sites and I try to understand the people who were running those sites and who were building these palatial places. And so my recent one was about Julius Caesar. Kind of gets a good rap. I think he's kind of seen as heroic, but he was pretty despotic. So here's how the poem starts. And I have a little quote from Anne Waldman. What do these goons have on everyone? How one man entirely fucks up republic and calls it empire. He is not alone. He has bros. Role models and usurpers write the manual for despots. Elections become formalities, only patrons win. He who owns the military, disregarding tradition, forgets res publica, the people's opinion, no longer counts while oligarchs anoint the dictator for life. Good title for a Caesar. He's good for the economy, now rests for eternity under the image of another man's stone feet. The irony of Caesar's death is that when he was murdered by those 23 stabs of the knife by his fellow senators, he fell under the feet of Pompey.
And Pompey was his great rival and also his bro, and kind of taught him how to be a dictator. So trees mark the spot where Caesar is sliced up like a kitchen carrot. Illusionary, unseen in the sound of the voiceover at the nearby forum and comitum. Listen as Caesar speaks words to the people. I am the dawn of the success of the empire. There's never been anything like me. I will make Rome great again. Remove any senator who disagrees. Do you know where this comes from? Yeah. I restore optimism all across our lands. I am the most successful person in history. Pompey was the worst person in history. My enemies will not smile and cheer. It shouldn't be that way. To my enemies I say, why not celebrate my victory and my birthday? I take big, bold action. Why not clap for me? I am making Rome affordable again. Under Pompey, you couldn't even buy an egg. We inherited a mess. That's why I now make myself dictator for life. You've never seen anything like me. That's why I've declared this emergency. We will stop wasting your tax dollars. No more collars for transgender mice. Or to translate Sesame Street into Parthenian, they show records in the tabularium. The 6.5 million people are already over 300 years old. Whatever I do is for the best. Pompey overwhelmed our schools and hospitals with alerts, with aliens. I am achieving the great liberation. No more indoctrination. I've cut off all funding that cuts to genitals. These priests at Magna Mater's temple, they have to stop suffering. Jupiter made you who you are. Don't we feel better? All we really needed was a dictator. What a difference I make. I have unshackled all laws. No one can challenge me. I have brought back free speech for me. So you can speak well only of me. It's just a segment. That was, if you didn't catch it, verbatim from Trump's address to the joint Congress. And I didn't think I could watch it, and I did, but I took notes. So.
Okay, before people leave, everyone received a packet coming in. Please take that packet home with you. There's vital materials in it. The call from Refuse Fascism, a call to conscience, a call to act. There is a compilation of articles by Bob Avakian on Trump MAGA fascism and how we can defeat it. And there is also some announcements about upcoming programs at Revolution Books. Andy mentioned the Trump Nazification of the military and what's happening on June 14th. Well, this Sunday at 4 p.m., we're going to have a discussion of that, both of that Nazification of the military and the call from Refuse Fascism to go to D.C. and also to protest here in New York. We're going to end this program with what we started with, the message from Mosab. I want all of us to take another look at that. Some of you came a little late. That's not a critique. And we're going to end with Mosab's words from Mosab himself. So if we could dim the lights. And I would also ask if the readers and the participants could stay behind for 1 minute so that we could take another group photo. That would be very good. So that's it. Let's hear from Mosab. And thank you all for coming out. And we must support and defend Mosab Abu Toha, this audience, these readers, this store. We must join together to stand against these attacks and to work ever more strenuously to stop the genocide in Gaza. Thank you very much.
Good evening, dear friends and supporters. Thank you very much for standing in solidarity with me, my work, and my family. Thank you for standing for free speech in a time when the oppressed not only get to be killed, dismembered, and disappeared, but also get to be silenced and demonized. Our right to freedom of speech is a universal right that every individual, wherever they are, must enjoy, just as every nation has the right to live freely and in dignity on their land. My poems and my work were born under the rubble of our house in Gaza. They were born in the refugee camp which Israel destroyed systematically in front of the eyes of this world, in broad daylight. We need to read our poems and express our opinions about matters that not only concern the Palestinian people, but every human individual in this world. And we must do this in broad daylight. Thank you again.